And that brings me to the question of a phenomena that's happening across the globe. And a lot of times it's people are complaining or blaming the governments that you guys are not creating enough jobs, etc., etc. But the real problem is that the workforce is transforming in itself. The work unit itself is going through a major transformation. So as this work and workforce changes, how HR technology is adopting to it? So have you seen any early trends? Because we are designed for permanent workforces running your organizations. But now the work and workforce is changing. So what are you seeing in that arena?
Well, that's a great point, right? Because there's so much talk about the different generations. I think the talk is overrated. Every generation has been different. Every generation is picking up technology differently, right? Our parents have the fax machine. We don't have the fax machines. Our parents didn't have an email account. We have an email account. The millennial texts instead of having an email account. So you adopt technology in different space. At the end of the day, all of the generations want to progress, build their career and do better over time. So that is the true north across the generations which is happening. And I think that's what HR vendors have to cater for. The interesting thing is we talk about the difference of the millennials, but or any generation, but we don't build different solutions for them. If they would be really so different, right? Then we'd say, okay, here's your millennial version, here's your Gen X, Gen Y, baby boomer version, and nobody wants that, right? So if one size fits all works well for the HR vendors and the enterprise vendors, it doesn't mean the generations are so different. But you have to be modern and you have to build a platform that helps a company to move faster. And if you want to move faster, you have to not empower the HR people or the finance people, sorry when you're listening, not the employee individual, but the people leader who has a challenge of getting things done, has a business objective with his or her team, and needs to have software to help them to succeed more in their task.
So very interesting, Holger, when you say that people are going to look at work very differently, the way you are explaining, I'm intrigued. Yeah, sweet is shifting.
The relative important thing is
why is so? If you hear well what he's saying, when he talks about workforce management, he's talking of leave, time and attendance, and multiple things. When he talks of HR core, let me clarify, it's the HR core data, mobility, etc., employee self-service, managerial self-service. Do you think, and I want a very candid view from you, though we have the section coming called Truth and Fair, but here I want to ask that, is performance management and compensation overrated modules vis-a-vis when it comes to HR core and workforce management? Because in India, I see because the CHRO loves this subject, they end up taking decision, but an employee uses these systems once or twice a year. And their employee experience takes a hit because core and workforce managements are not being catered by some of the best ERP vendors. So do you think this is overrated? And
no, I think that's the problem, right? So the dirty truth of talent management overall is that it's broken, because at the core of talent management is performance management. And the reality is that the software vendors have oversold what software can do. It's inherent in human nature that you don't want to have an unpleasant conversation. You don't want to criticize someone. We don't want to have that. We may even think about many managers have an average tenure of 2 years. I know that person isn't great, but I don't want to have this conversation. I'd kick the can down the road, the next person have to figure it out. And the problem is if performance management doesn't work, I don't know who to recruit for my thing. I don't know who to onboard to stay with. I don't know who to pay for performance with who. I can't do succession management.
But as an employee, I care for whether I'm able to do my leave and time well, I'm able to use the application well, I'm able to experience my productivity through the app. All that is not existing, and my company is chasing performance management all the time. So is there a conflict? And that's what shows in the market data. If you look at the market, almost 70% of market is between workforce management and the whole HR core than the rest of the HR suite.
Because that's what employees have to use all the time. I have to clock in, clock out, right? I have to make sure that my payroll is right, so I have to update HR core elements, right? Whereas talent management hasn't really broken the nut. There's some very interesting approaches to it. We know that performance management has to be more tiny mini feedback pieces, has to be more longitudinal. A manager needs to see performance anytime, not twice a year or once a year. So there's interesting innovation happening in the space, but until performance management really works in enterprise, the rest of talent management is questionable. And nobody gets paid for using the HR software. Except for me, for some HR people. Right?
Absolutely.
So you have to do a business job. So while you're sitting in the back trying to recruit more talent for your restaurant chain, as an example, you hear that customers complain outside and things are not doing. What are you going to do as a manager, as a people leader, right? You're going to run outside and try to fix things, and then you fall behind and you're recruiting again, right? So You have to enable the people.
No, I think it's wonderful. It's so glad to hear. So friends, I'm hoping that you're making a note for the wonderful point that Holger is making, that the recruiting software is going to look very different for the gig economy tomorrow, because you may go join tomorrow the workforce, may not be there day after. At the same time, he's again not saying something which is not unexpected, but very beautifully put, that performance management once, twice, thrice can't happen. It has to be continuous. And I think then only talent management will make sense and will grab the bigger market share. Otherwise, the HR tech market share will continue to be dominated by workforce management and HR core. So I think that brings us to the second phase of our conversation. So you've been fantastic, Holger, in session 1. So we hope the session 2 is going to be as exciting for the audience and the viewers. So
I hope so too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fingers crossed.
So this brings us to the second part of the conversation with Holger Mueller. And friends, this is the most interesting part of our conversation, which is truth and fair. So we know that you're always truthful and you're very, very fair, but we're going to just ask you a few questions. We want your spontaneous responses as candidly as possible and as fairly as you can. So first and foremost, you advise pretty much every top HR tech company. People love your views, they want to hear you. They want to know what's the opinion you carry, because that probably builds up many more opinions in the buyer community. In the world of audit, there are big fours, big fives, big threes.
Yeah.
Do you think in the world of HR tech, there'll be big twos, big threes, big fours? What's your number?
I think in the suite world, we'll see 2.5.
2.5, wow. Very interesting. Would you like to name them or no?
If you find it, right, this is SAP, Oracle, and maybe if they have a shot at it, Infor.
Infor. And what about Workday?
Workday is in the HR world more, in the finance world, right? So Workday is getting there, but it doesn't have the customer base yet, right? So Workday is a very promising, potentially future complete suite vendor, but they're at 2,000 customers, which is a lot. They're large customers on the one side, but if you compare to the customer accounts of the much longer in business SAPs, Oracles, and Infos, it's a very small.
So it's 2.5. Holger says the big 2.5, not big 3, big 4, and that's your answer.
Yes.
And do you think that the cloud players which came up from nowhere really forced the large traditional players to change their strategy and force them to acquire companies? Or was that the way?
So it's an open secret why Oracle bought Taleo and SAP bought SuccessFactors. Was all about learning cloud, understanding cloud, and putting a stop in the market to somebody taking their customers away because of cloud.
But with such major investments in R&D, why these large traditional players couldn't think of this earlier themselves, that they had to buy somebody to sustain the market?
It's always hard to disrupt yourself. Yeah, I mean, customers. I mean, there's still areas in the world where people are skeptical about cloud, and they deploy things on premises like in the old times, right? So it's very, very hard. I worked myself for 20 years. You can see my bio for SAP and already combined, right? So it's not easy to keep a suite running with demanding customers, thousands, 10,000s of customers, innovate on the roadmaps that you're there, and then disrupt and move the whole thing, right? It's much easier to build a tiny, shiny, very interesting, very sexy, very appealing piece of functionality.
Absolutely. So the new HR tech players always have a market and will always have a market. They have the capacity to challenge. So believe in yourself is what I hear from Holger.
And be bold, like you said.
And be bold, like you mentioned. And then comes the question that while deciding the HR platform, who's at the center, according to you? Is it the HR department or the employee?
It's definitely not the employee, which unfortunately is the case, right? And we see more and more employees, people leaders being part of the selection process, right? Because their voice, their expertise, if they can use a system, stands and falls on the adoption side. But unfortunately, or luckily, depending on the perspective, HR is not like CRM. CRM is in sales a voluntary application. If salespeople don't use the software, you can't fire all your salespeople. You have to get the software they want. Nobody is going to be keeping their job and say, I'm not going to put my HR software in there or my HR core updates. You won't get paid correctly, right? So the employee is in a much, much weaker situation there. So it's not necessarily HR making the decision. It depends if it's a divisional decision. Might be the divisional head or the CEO, CFO, or CIO. And it's a question of how comfortable they are to push a suite versus a HR suite solution or even point solution inside of that. Point solutions usually are done divisionally, and HR responsible head of recruiting will decide on recruiting software piece and so on. And the funny thing is, recruiting is the CRM inside of HR.
Oh, so you finally
say I can't use that software, and nobody's coming, so you can't file your.
So eventually it's going to change, but very candidly he shared that today HR departments decide. So but tell me one thing, that when you talk of recruiting, and again very candidly, matchmaking, we've talked of gamification. Is there something new or different which is going to come up and disrupt even these two big things which are being talked on recruitment and things like that?
There's always disruption on the corner. Things are always changing. Right? The only thing we know for sure is that things have to move faster. Recruiters have to recruit more people in less time, or find talent, better talent in less time.
So there's more opportunity on recruitment side. It's not over yet. Right? So this will remain. Yet. Yeah. So this will remain.
So it's only over. There's a saying. I don't know where it's from, England or something. It's only over when the fat lady sings.
So the fat lady is not yet.
There's no fat ladies anymore.
So hopefully it'll sing soon. And the last question for you comes from the world of analyst. Yeah. So I think I don't like monopolies. I don't like oligopolies. I don't like this approach that you can force customers to buy because you're in a particular situation. But that's what the world of analysts have done. They have created these quadrants. 4 boxes, 6 boxes, 8 boxes,
no tragic,
16 boxes.
You will never see a tragic quadrant from Constellation.
Absolutely. But you never believed in them, or what's your view on those boxes? Because a lot of time customers ask that, I see that company there, but I said these boxes are losing its relevance because of multiple reasons. So what is your opinion of those boxes?
You'll never see boxes coming from us. We spend too much time, both our founder Ray and me, at software vendors to know that we jokingly don't call them magic quadrants, but tragic quadrants, because they're tragic for everybody except for one vendor. And as much as they help simplifying things, every company needs their unique fit. The magic quadrant for every company looks very, very different. Everybody starts from a different base. Everybody needs to do something else, and who is the best fit for an enterprise is not what can be in a one-dimensional structure. It's not because it's a magic quadrant or anything like this, or wave or whatever thing. This is why we so strongly believe in the power of case studies, where decision makers can make themselves familiar how a product has made a difference for another company, for a peer in the industry, who they can ideally talk to, which you can with Constellation Executive Network, and then see what it has done specifically for that.
So friends, Holger is for not magic quadrants. He thinks they are tragic quadrants. He's for the case studies. So, but the market will decide over a period of time, because as the quadrants still remain hot in the market. But the buyer will decide as it progresses. But we loved your views. Thank you so much for coming all the way and participating in this. We'll keep bothering you and asking your questions. We're going to relay this on the web. And before we close it, friends, please watch it. And as we go to the 3rd episode, which will come soon, have a look at this whole detailed session. We'll transcribe it. If you have your feedback, like last time, please write to us. But before we really call it a day, I'm going to ask Holger to please sign a couple of books. And these books are for the people who are going to win the awards. Basis the social media tweets and retweets they will do for Holger.
I have terrible handwriting.
No problems. People are going to get books.
Very good. So be social. I want to see your tweets.
Oh, absolutely.
At Holger MU.
Okay.
MU.
So Holger MU is the most followed. I love his tweets. I love his candor and the shoey selfies. If you don't know what it is, just go to Holger handle and you will realize what I'm talking about.
Stop the selfies.
So thank you so much, Holger. Wonderful talking to you. Thank you, friends. Thank you, viewers, and we look forward to hear your comments. Have a great day. Thank you.